Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Blue Marble Riders. I'm off to Brits on the beach today. It's a car show featuring old-fashioned British automobile and motorcycle history. I thought this would be a great time to discuss the future of motorcycling. Now, I've talked about the golden era or the golden age of motorcycling before, but this is different. This is going to be a bittersweet personal take on what's happening with motorcycling. Now, many of us think the golden age of motorcycling was perhaps back in the 60s when the Brit bikes ruled, with those Triumphs, Nortons, Villiers, AJS, BSA, you name it, they were out there and they were leading the world. And then, of course, there are others that say, no, I grew up slightly after that era. For me, the golden age of motorcycling is the early 70s, when the Japanese swept the Brits aside with their multi-cylinder, four-cylinder super bikes. Out they came and swept everything aside with their new styling, their wonderful engines, the evocative sounds they made. That was an FJR 1300. Remember that for later on in this story. And then, of course, there was the late 70s, early 80s, the GPZs, the Laverdas, Ducatis. Others will say that indeed was the golden age of motorcycling. But au contraire, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you that for me, and I think for many of us today, truly deep down, when we take those nostalgic specs off, we will come to realize that what we are in right now, this is the golden age of motorcycling now, right now. Really, truly, the 60s was a wonderful time. Those wonderful bikes that charged around to the different cafes, the cafe races. But it was also a time where gaskets, seals and oil leaks, nuts and bolts falling off, vibrations, my God, even masculine sterility was a possibility riding some of those bikes. Okay, kid you. We can't forget those drum brakes. We can't forget those hinged in the middle frames. And then, of course, we go to the 70s and we look at, well, let's take a look at those other bikes, right? Those lovely 70s super bikes, the Japanese 70s super bikes. Well, we look at those and we forget often they were known as Widowmakers. They were bikes with huge engines of more power than had been seen before, with archaic elastic frames that could barely contain that power. The CB 754, the Kawasaki Z1, and then if we move on to, well, those Laverdas, those lovely Ducatis, they spent more time in the garage than even the Bonneville, and it wasn't just because people liked looking at them. But these days, today, it is so hard to find a genuinely bad motorcycle. A motorcycle that's unsafe or unreliable. It's almost impossible to find one. We really live in an age where there are no such thing as terrible motorcycles. R&D has come so far. The power of the consumer, social media, warranties, government expectations and laws have raised the bar for motorcycles so much that we're living in an era where never has there been so much choice. So many different genres, engine configurations, electronic packages, warranties, trim levels within different motorcycles, different ways to buy them. When you think about the opportunities that modern motorcyclists have now to make a motorcycle their own, aftermarket parts, all sorts of different things, it's absolutely mind-blowing. But that, unfortunately, in the near future, is going to start changing. And that is what this video is about. Sorry for the long intro, but I think we need to talk about the future of motorcycling. A few days ago, the European Environment Ministers met, and after 16 hours they hammered out a clause which says that by 2035 there will be an absolute ban on any carbon dioxide emissions from tailpipes. 100% ban. I know, but I'm in favor of this. It hurts, and I'm not putting myself first. I'm realizing the state of this rock we live on, it needs it. But it doesn't make it easy to swallow. And this 2035 ban it kind of just beefs up what we already know. We already know that in many jurisdictions, ICE vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles, are banned. They're new production, they're new sales, not old ones, not second-hand vehicles, but the production and selling of new ICE vehicles will be banned in most jurisdictions by 2035. Some jurisdictions, about 20 of them, including countries like India, Belgium, Denmark, you name it, go through the list. It's a huge list, are actually banning them in 2030. Canada, the UK, 2035, California, I think 2030, Washington State, 2030. It's a state thing in the US, but it's coming. And what does that mean? Well, people are saying that's a few years away. We've still got room. You're dreaming. Triumph announced that it usually takes them 3 years from concept to production and distribution and sales of a motorcycle. So 3 years from the concept of a new motorcycle till it's on the showroom floor, and a further 3 years to recoup the money that they put into retooling, the design, the warranty, the making of the parts, the support, the distribution for that motorcycle. That's 6 years. Now count back from 2035, and that's 2029. At 2029, it no longer becomes economically feasible for motorcycle manufacturers to produce new ICE motorcycles. Now then, of course, you can also, thank you sir, you can also look at 2030. If you count back 6 years from there, that's 2024, 2 years from now. 2 years from now, many motorcycle manufacturers will be saying, we're calling or closing the curtains on new motorcycle machinery. And this is already happening this fall. The Japanese have just recently endorsed the Euro 5 and next Euro 6 limits on their own motorcycles for the first time in the domestic market. So all Japanese bikes, no matter where they go in the world, will be having to live with the Euro 5 and Euro 6 emissions limits. That means fueling's going to get dodgy everywhere. That means bikes are going to be heavier, more sophisticated, more expensive, harder to tweak, and that's starting at this fall. And in order to meet those targets, the Japanese motorcycle manufacturers have decided to reduce their lineups by between 10 and 25%. 10 and 25% of motorcycles will be pulled from the floor. For Suzuki it's 25%, for Honda it's just about 10%, for Yamaha the same thing. So the FJR 1300 gone in the fall. The Honda CB 400 Super 4, we don't get it in North America, gone in the fall. The large Honda Goldwing models, yes, you heard it right, the 6-cylinder Honda Goldwing models will be tailed back and curtailed starting this fall. If you want a Goldwing, you better start looking. Honda will be removing them from the market because of the amount of work to get them through Euro 6 coming up. What we're going to see is marginal models. Models perhaps like the Katana that doesn't actually sell that well. It makes no sense to invest money into the production of new motorcycles or the continuation of motorcycles that are going to actually come close to losing you money when the end is nigh. And the end is nigh for ICE vehicles. Internal combustion engine vehicles, the writing is on the wall. Now, it makes me happy, it makes me unhappy. It makes me happy because I believe this beautiful green planet we call home, it really does need it. We are the worst pest on this planet. I think that man's got a very good idea. We are the worst pest on this planet. We are, of course, the biggest blight on this planet. We do the most damage to Mother Nature, without doubt. And so, because of that, we're going to have to clean our act up. However, what makes me unhappy is what's coming is e-bikes. And E-bikes are going to be a wonderful solution for many, many people, particularly generations who have hardly or haven't yet swung a leg over a motorbike. They are going to see them as a wonderful creation. But for those of us lucky enough to live in this golden age of motorcycling, many of us, I feel, are going to have difficulty with that, because an e-bike is not this. It isn't a motorcycle. It gives you half, perhaps, of the experience. You whisk through the air, you feel free, you're in the environment, you're moving. You can use your body to steer the bike, integrated with the bike, you feel like one. But the big miss for that is the fact that you do not get the same tactile feedback from an e-bike that you do on something like this. And that is my personal preference. I'm not speaking for everybody, I'm speaking for me. A motorbike is charming for many reasons, but among the biggest reason that I love riding motorcycles is the tactile feedback I get. The lovely pulse through the frame and the bars, the tingling. You know there's an engine in the cradle. It's not intrusive, but it's there. It gives you feedback. And then of course there's the wonderful symphony of ripping up through the gears, watching that tack needle tremble as you wind it up and thrash it through each different gear, pulling the clutch in, dipping the throttle and snicking up that gear in such a way that you feel you've accomplished something. Well, an e-bike has no gears. It has no vibrations. It's very smooth, and let's be frank, it sounds more like a kitten in a microwave than an internal combustion engine. And I think we're losing lots when we look at that. This guy's on a shafty, I'm guessing a Beamer. Very nice, and he's being very judicious and looking for the gravel there. Good boy. I'll give him some room. So as electric bikes filter into the market, like many of you, I will be looking for either new or second-hand motorcycles that fill my niche. I like to change motorcycles a lot. Although I've kept with my V-Strom since 2016, I've kept with this since 2018, I do like to change my motorcycles. But I won't be changing to an e-bike. I believe that right now, the choice for internal combustion motorcycles is as big as it will ever be, as wide as it will ever be, as good as it will ever be. We all have different tastes, as I mentioned before, whether it be ergonomics, whether it be price, whether it be CC, whether it be looks, but the choice that we have is phenomenal, and we are never going to see that choice again, not this wide. And it is for that reason, ladies and gentlemen, that the bittersweet ending to this tale is that nicely, sweetly, wonderfully, we live in the golden age of motorcycles. The golden age of motorcycling is now, right now. Thanks for listening, folks. Give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, a comment in the comments underneath. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Where are we going? What are you going to do as these deadlines loom up for us? What are your plans? I've got a bike in mind. It was produced from 2007 to 2017. It's a different engine configuration than I've ever had before, and that is what ice bikes give us. Different noises, sounds, feelings, just by the number of cylinders and the way they're orientated. And I'm going to go exploring that soon. Can anyone get me to Ontario cheaply? I really want to pick it up. Okay, bye for now. Thanks for listening, guys. And that's a classic example of always expect the unexpected.